The heavy oak doors of the boardroom weren't fully closed, leaving a sliver of space just wide enough for the truth to slip through. I wasn't supposed to be here yet. I was 20 minutes early for what Hahm Jae-hwan had called a celebratory lunch regarding the merger, my heels silent on the plush carpet of Hahm Global Holdings. But instead of laughter or the clink of glasses, I heard the dry, papery shuffle of a contract sliding across a mahogany table. "It is a clean swap, Jae-hwan," a woman's voice cut through the air. It was sharp, cultured, and devoid of warmth. I recognized it immediately, Madam Lin Wei. My capital for your freedom from debt. And in return, my niece, Lena, becomes the face of this family. I froze. My hand, hovering over the brass handle, dropped to my side. And Rebecca? That was Jae-hwan. My fiancé. The man who had held me 3 hours ago and whispered that we were a team. His voice didn't sound defensive. It sounded calculating. "Rebecca Brown is a liability," his father, Mr. Hahm Sung-jin, interjected. His tone was boring. "She is talented, yes. But Hahm Global needs political insulation. We need the Wei family's connections in the Senate and their distribution channels in Seoul. Rebecca offers aesthetics. Lena offers an empire." I stopped breathing. The air in the hallway felt suddenly thin, like I was standing on a high peak without oxygen. I waited for Jae-hwan to shout, to flip the table, to tell them that 5 years of building a life together meant more than distribution channels. "Where do I sign?" Jae-hwan asked. The scratching of a fountain pen on paper was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It sounded like a bone snapping. Before I tell you what I did next, if you've ever had your loyalty repaid with betrayal, hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe and turn on notifications, because my story is about to prove that rock bottom is just the foundation for a skyscraper. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. A strange, cold calm washed over me, a survival mechanism I hadn't used since I was navigating the cutthroat architecture program at university. I pushed the door open. The three of them looked up. Madam Lin Wei, draped in Chanel tweed, looked merely annoyed. Mr. Hahm looked through me. But Jae-hwan had the audacity to look relieved. "Rebecca," he said, setting the pen down. The ink was still wet. "You're early." "And you're sold," I said. My voice was steady, surprising even me. I walked further into the room, my eyes locking on the contract. "I assume that's the bill of sale?" "Don't be dramatic," Mr. Hahm scoffed, waving a hand. "This is business. Hahm Global is hemorrhaging money. The Wei Consortium is offering a lifeline. It's simple math." "It's a marriage contract," I noted, spotting the clause headers. "To Lena Wei." "Lena understands the requirements of this world," Madam Lin Wei said, smoothing her skirt. "She has been groomed for this role. You, Miss Brown, have always been a passion project." A passion project. 5 years. I had redesigned their headquarters. I had brokered peace between their American and Korean design teams. I had nursed Jae-hwan through his anxiety attacks when the market crashed. I looked at Jae-hwan. "Tell me you didn't just trade me for a bailout." He stood up, adjusting his tie. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Bex, be realistic. We were struggling. The love doesn't pay the creditors. With Lena, I secure the company's future. I can make sure you're taken care of, though. We can set up a severance package. Maybe fund that nonprofit you wanted." "A severance package," I repeated. "Like I'm an employee you're firing." "Essentially," Mr. Hahm grunted. The disrespect didn't burn, it froze. It clarified everything. I reached up and pulled the engagement ring off my finger. It was a modest diamond, one I had picked because I knew the company finances were tight. I had been saving them money while they were planning to replace me. I dropped the ring on the signed contract. It made a hollow thud. "Keep the severance," I said, turning my back on them. "And keep the ring. You're going to need every penny when the Wei family realizes they bought a coward." "Rebecca, wait," Jae-hwan called out, but he didn't move towards me. "Don't burn bridges. You still need references for your studio." I didn't look back. I walked out, the heavy doors closing behind me with a finality that felt like a prison sentence ending. I made it to the elevator before my legs started to shake. I pressed the button for the lobby, my vision blurring. I needed to get out. I needed air. I stepped out of the building into the biting wind of a gray afternoon, the city noise assaulting my senses. I was so focused on not falling apart that I didn't see the man until I collided with him. It wasn't a stumble. It was a harsh impact against something solid and unyielding. I gasped, dropping my clutch. Easy. The voice was deep, resonant, and incredibly calm. Strong hands gripped my shoulders, steadying me. I looked up. The man was tall, towering over me. He wore a suit of deep, midnight navy that looked like it cost more than my entire apartment. He wasn't wearing a tie, the top button of his crisp white shirt undone, revealing a hint of tanned skin. But it was his face that stopped the apology in my throat. He was strikingly handsome, with sharp, aristocratic Korean features, but there was a hardness to him that Jae-hwan never had. His hair was a unique shade of ash brown, almost steel in the overcast light, swept back perfectly. And his eyes, they were dark, observant, and devoid of the pity I was expecting. I'm sorry, I managed, my voice trembling. I wasn't looking. He didn't let go of my shoulders immediately. He looked past me, toward the revolving doors of Hahm Global, then back at my face. He took in the missing ring on my finger, the redness in my eyes, the slight tremor in my hands. You look like someone who just walked out of a burning building, he said. Something like that, I whispered. I bent down to grab my clutch, and as he reached down to help me, his sleeve rode up slightly. I saw it, just a glimpse. Dark ink traced a clean ridge of mountains along his forearm, steady, immovable, inevitable. A minimalist tattoo that seemed at odds with the bespoke suit, hinting at a history much rougher than the boardroom. He handed me the bag. Hahm Jae-hwan. I stiffened. How did you know? I know everyone who walks in and out of that building, he said. He straightened up, his presence dominating the sidewalk. And I know that today was the deadline for the Way Consortium deal. I assume he signed. He did. And you are the casualty. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. I'm Rebecca Brown, I said, lifting my chin. I refuse to be seen as a victim, even by this stranger. And I'm not a casualty. I'm a free agent. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It didn't reach his eyes, but it softened the terrifying intensity of his face. A free agent. I like that. A black sedan pulled up to the curb, a Maybach. The rear window rolled down, and a man with a tablet looked out. Sir, we're late for the council meeting. The man in the navy suit ignored him. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a card. It was heavy, black matte with silver embossing. Chun International Group. Chun Hyuk-bin. My breath hitched. Chun International. They were the apex predators. Hahm Global was a guppy compared to the shark that was Chun Hyuk-bin. He was a myth in the industry, reclusive, ruthless, and incredibly wealthy. Why are you talking to me? I asked, gripping the card. Because Hahm Sung-jin thinks in quarters, Hyuk-bin said, his voice lowering, intimate despite the street noise. He thinks removing you solves his debt. He doesn't realize that you were the only thing giving his company a soul. I stared at him. You know my work? I know you designed the Hahm Atrium. I know you solved the structural load issue on their Busan project when their lead engineers wanted to cut corners. I know you are the reason their stock held steady last year. He stepped closer. I could smell him, sandalwood, sea salt, and something sharp like cold metal. Jae-hwan is a fool, Hyuk-bin said softly. He traded a diamond for a handful of gravel because the gravel came with a check. I don't make mistakes like that. What do you want? I have a proposition. Hahm Global just declared war on me by aligning with the Wei family. I intend to win that war. And I think you might enjoy watching them burn from the front row. Revenge. I asked, the word tasting bitter and sweet on my tongue. Justice, he corrected. And profit. I have a gala to attend next week. The Aurora Global Investment Gala. Jae-hwan will be there with his new fiancé to announce their merger. I need to walk in with someone who makes their alliance look like a cheap compromise. You want a prop, I said, my defenses rising. I want a partner, he countered, his eyes locking onto mine. I need a wife, Rebecca. The world tilted on its axis. Excuse me. My board is pressuring me to settle down. They want stability. The way family is moving in on my territories. If I marry, and I marry someone with your talent and insider knowledge of Hahm Global, it secures my position and destroys theirs. You get resources for your studio, protection from the fallout, and the satisfaction of seeing Jae-hwan's face when you walk in on my arm. A contract. 1 year. You're insane, I whispered. I'm efficient, he said. And I'm offering you a sword instead of a tissue. He checked his watch, a movement of precise, fluid grace. Think about it. My assistant, Collins, will contact you tomorrow. Don't go back to your apartment tonight. The media will be camped out there once the engagement news drops in an hour. Go to the St. Regis. There's a suite booked under your name. You booked a suite before you even spoke to me? I told you, Hyuk-bin said, opening the door to his car. I knew you'd walk out. The only variable was whether you'd crumble or stand tall. You stood. He got in the car. As the window rolled up, he looked at me one last time. Don't let them see you cry, Rebecca. Tears are for people who don't have options. You have me now. The car glided away into traffic. I stood there on the pavement, clutching the black card. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification from a business news app. Breaking, Hahm Global and Wei Consortium announced strategic merger. Jae-hwan Hahm to wed heiress Lena Wei. It was real. They hadn't even waited for my body to get cold. I looked at the notification, then at the card in my hand. Chun Hyuk-bin. The enemy of my enemy. I hailed a taxi. The St. Regis, I told the driver. I wasn't going to cry. Hyuk-bin was right. Tears were useless. If Jae-hwan wanted a business transaction, I would show him what a high-stakes deal really looked like. The suite at the St. Regis was larger than my entire apartment. It smelled of fresh lilies and money. There was a fruit basket on the table and a bottle of sparkling water, no alcohol. A note next to it, written in sharp, angular handwriting. Keep a clear head. We discussed terms at 0800. CHB. I didn't sleep well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jae-hwan's relieved face as he sold me out. I saw the smirk on Madame Lin Wei's face. But then, the image would shift to the mountain ridge tattoo on a forearm and eyes that saw everything. The next morning at 7:55 a.m., a knock came at the door. It wasn't room service. It was a man with a tablet, dressed in a sharp gray suit. He looked efficient and dangerous in a quiet way. Miss Brown, he said with a polite nod. I am Collins. Mr. Chun is waiting for you in the breakfast room. I had dressed in the most professional outfit I had with me, a cream blazer and dark trousers. I felt like I was walking into a lion's den, but at least this lion had warned me he was hungry. Hyuk-bin was sitting at a table by the window, reading a financial report on a tablet. He looked different in the morning light, less like a shadow, more like a king. He was wearing a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled up again, revealing that tattoo. Coffee, he offered, not looking up. Black, 2 sugars. That is how you drink it, correct? Stalker, I muttered, sitting across from him. Thorough, he corrected, finally meeting my gaze. I researched you, Rebecca. Just as you spent last night researching me. He was right. I had Googled him until 3 a.m. Chun Hyuk-bin. I am 32 years old. CEO of Chun International. Took over the family business at 24 after his father's suspicious death. Expanded into tech, real estate, and shipping. Rumors of ties to the shadowy underbelly of Seoul's Port Authority, but nothing ever proven. Known as the Glacier for his cold demeanor. I saw the news, I said. Jae-hwan and Lena look very happy in their press release. They look expensive, Hyuk-bin said dismissively. Happiness is irrelevant to them. Status is the currency. And right now, their status is climbing. Hahm Global stock is up 12% this morning. And you want to bring it down? I want to crush it, he said calmly. Hahm Sung-jin betrayed my father years ago. I have been waiting for them to overextend. The Wei merger is a desperate move. If I strike now, I can dismantle them. And where do I fit in? You are the legitimacy, Hyuk-bin said. He leaned forward, clasping his hands. If I attack them alone, it looks like corporate warfare. If I attack them with you, the woman they wronged, the genius behind their success, it looks like justice. Public sentiment shifts. Investors get skittish. You are the narrative weapon. And the marriage? Necessary. It protects you from Wei's retaliation. If you are my wife, you are Chun property. They cannot touch you. And it gives me the stable image I need for the board. Real marriage? I asked, my voice tight. Legally? Legally, yes. In every other way, it is up to us. His eyes dropped to my lips for a fraction of a second, then back to my eyes. The heat in that brief glance was enough to make my coffee seem cold. I do not force intimacy. But I do expect loyalty. Absolute loyalty. What do I get? I asked, channeling my inner businesswoman. Your own design firm. Fully funded by a blind trust, so it doesn't look like I bought it for you. Access to my contact list. And 10% of the profits from the Hahm acquisition once we dismantle them. And therapy, I blurted out. He blinked, surprised. Therapy? This. I gestured between us. This is trauma. That, yesterday was trauma. I need to process this. I want sessions fully covered, with a specialist of my choice. Hyuk-bin stared at me for a long moment. Then, the corner of his mouth ticked up. Done. I will have Collins set up an account with the Aurora Wellness Foundation. And I want to redesign your lobby, I added, pushing my luck. I saw photos. It's sterile. It lacks humanity. Hyuk-bin actually laughed then. It was a rusty sound, deep and low. You are negotiating renovation terms while discussing a fake marriage? I'm an architect, I said, shrugging. I fix broken structures. Fine, he said, extending his hand. His palm was warm, his grip firm. Fix my lobby. Fix my reputation. And help me break Jae-hwan. I took his hand. Deal. As our skin touched, a spark of static electricity snapped between us. He didn't pull away. He held my hand a second longer than necessary, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. Go get ready, Mrs. Chun, he said, his voice dropping an octave. We have a courthouse to get to. And then, we have a gala to prepare for. I pulled my hand back, my heart racing. I had just sold myself to the devil to beat a demon. But looking at the mountain ridge on his arm, I had a feeling this devil would at least burn the world down for me, rather than sell me for firewood. The next 3 days were a blur. We flew to a private courthouse in a neighboring district to avoid the press. The ceremony was quick. No white dress, just a sleek ivory suit Hyuk-bin had sent to my room. He wore black. When the judge asked for the rings, Hyuk-bin produced a band of platinum set with black diamonds. It was modern, fierce, and heavy. I didn't have time to get something custom, he murmured as he slid it onto my finger. We will upgrade it later. It's perfect, I said honestly. It felt like armor. We didn't kiss. He pressed his lips to my forehead, a dry, lingering touch that somehow felt more intimate than a kiss on the mouth. I smelled that sandalwood scent again, and for a moment, I wanted to lean into him. I was so tired of being strong. Steady, he whispered against my skin. I have you. We moved into his penthouse in the city center. It was a fortress of glass and steel, overlooking the skyline. My room was down the hall from his, a boundary we had agreed upon. But the real challenge wasn't the living arrangement. It was the gala. The Aurora Global Investment Gala was the event of the season. Everyone would be there. Jae-hwan, Lena, the entire board of Hahm Global. On the night of the gala, I stood in front of the full-length mirror in my room. The dress Hyuk-bin had chosen was devastating. It was a deep, emerald green velvet that hugged every curve, with a slit that went up to my thigh and a neckline that plunged dangerously. It was the color of money and envy. "Rebecca?" Hyuk-bin knocked on the open door. I turned. He stopped in the doorway. He was wearing a tuxedo, tailored to perfection, with a velvet bow tie that matched my dress. He looked powerful, dangerous. His eyes swept over me, starting from my heels and moving up slowly. The air in the room grew heavy. He didn't say a word, but his jaw tightened. "Too much?" I asked, suddenly nervous. "No," he said, his voice rough. He walked over to me, stopping just inches away. He reached out and adjusted the strap of my dress, his fingers grazing my shoulder. The touch left a trail of fire. "You look lethal." "That was the plan," I breathed. "Jae-hwan is going to choke on his champagne," Hyuk-bin said. He offered me his arm. "Are you ready to rewrite the narrative?" I took a deep breath. I thought of the contract, the betrayal, the ring on the table. I took his arm. "Let's go to work, husband." The ride to the venue was silent, the city lights blurring past. My heart was hammering against my ribs. "He will try to talk to you," Hyuk-bin said as the car slowed down near the red carpet. "Jae-hwan. He is arrogant. He thinks you are pining for him. He thinks you are at home crying." "I know. When he sees us, do not engage him. Let me handle the politics. You just shine." The car stopped. The flashes of the paparazzi cameras were blinding even through the tinted windows. The door opened. Collins was there, holding it for us. Hyuk-bin stepped out first. The crowd went wild. "Mr. Chun. Mr. Chun. Is it true about the hostile takeover rumors?" He ignored them. He turned back to the car and held out his hand for me. I took it. I stepped out into the flashing lights. For a second, there was confusion. The press didn't recognize me instantly. I was the background character, the architect, not the star. Then, someone shouted, "Is that Rebecca Brown? Hahm Jae-hwan's ex? Look at the ring. Is she with Chun Hyuk-bin?" Hyuk-bin pulled me close, his hand resting possessively on the small of my back. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear, creating a picture of intimacy that would be on every front page tomorrow. "Head high," he whispered. "The queen does not bow." We walked the carpet. I didn't smile. I gave them the cool, detached elegance that Madame Lin Wei thought she owned. We entered the ballroom. It was a sea of gold and crystal. And there, in the center of the room, holding court, was Jae-hwan. He was laughing at something Lena said. Lena was wearing white, looking like a debutante. Jae-hwan looked confident, successful. Then he turned. His eyes scanned the room and landed on us. The smile slid off his face like oil. He froze. His glass tilted in his hand, spilling champagne onto his expensive cuff. I felt Hyuk-bin's grip tighten on my waist. "Showtime," Hyuk-bin murmured. We walked straight toward them. The crowd parted. The music seemed to fade. "Hyuk-bin," Jae-hwan stammered as we stopped in front of him. He looked confused, his eyes darting to me, then to Hyuk-bin's hand on my waist, then to the ring on my finger. "Rebecca? What are you doing here?" "Hello, Jae-hwan," I said. My voice was smooth, unrecognizable to my own ears. "You remember Chun Hyuk-bin, don't you?" "We're acquainted," Hyuk-bin said, his voice like grinding stones. "Congratulations on your merger, Hahm. It seems you value transactions." "Rebecca, why are you with him?" Jae-hwan demanded, ignoring Hyuk-bin. He stepped forward, his face flushing. "We need to talk. You're making a scene." "I'm not making a scene," I said, tilting my head. "I'm making an introduction." I raised my left hand to tuck a stray curl behind my ear, letting the light catch the black diamonds of my wedding band. "Jae-hwan," I said, smiling the sharpest smile I had. "Meet my husband." The silence that followed was louder than the betrayal had ever been. "Husband." The word left Jae-hwan's mouth like he was spitting out a piece of glass. He looked from me to Hyuk-bin, his face draining of color, then flushing a deep, angry red. "That's impossible. We broke up 3 days ago. You can't be married." Time moves differently when you know what you want, Hyuk-bin said. His voice was terrifyingly calm, a low rumble that vibrated against my side where his hand still rested. Unlike you, Hahm, I don't need a committee to approve my decisions. Lena Wei stepped forward. She was beautiful in that polished, manufactured way that money buys, but her eyes were sharp with suspicion. She looked at my emerald velvet dress, then at her own white gown. She realized too late that she looked like a bride, while I looked like the woman who owned the venue. It's a rebound, Lena said, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. She reached out and touched Jae-hwan's arm, claiming him. Oh, Rebecca. You poor thing. Rushing into a marriage with him, just to make a point? It's desperate. I felt Hyuk-bin tense beside me. I placed my hand over his waist, signaling him to wait. This was my fight. Desperate. I repeated, keeping my voice light. Desperate is trading your fiancé for a credit line, Lena. Desperate is needing your aunt to buy you a husband because you couldn't secure a legacy on your own merit. The crowd around us had gone silent. You could hear a pin drop. Somewhere, a camera shutter clicked rapidly. How dare you? Madame Lin Wei appeared from the throng, looking like a furious hawk. Security should remove this. Remove my wife? Hyuk-bin cut her off. He didn't raise his voice, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. He turned his cold, dark gaze on Madame Lin. I wouldn't advise that. Unless the Wei Consortium is ready for a forensic audit of its offshore accounts, my team has been using some new AI analytics software. Very thorough. We found some interesting discrepancies in your logistics division this morning. Madame Lin closed her mouth with an audible snap. Her eyes widened. It was a bluff, or maybe it wasn't. With Hyuk-bin, you never knew. This isn't over, Jae-hwan hissed, stepping closer to me. He ignored Hyuk-bin, staring intensely into my eyes. Rebecca, you're making a mistake. He's dangerous. You don't know who he is. You're doing this to hurt me, but you're going to get yourself killed. I was already dying with you, Jae-hwan, I whispered, leaning in so only he could hear. I was dying of boredom and mediocrity. At least now I'm awake. I pulled back and looked at Hyuk-bin. I'm bored, darling. Shall we? We shall, Hyuk-bin agreed. He looked at Jae-hwan one last time, a look of pure, unadulterated pity. Enjoy the merger, Hahm. Try not to depreciate the asset too quickly. He guided me away. We walked through the parting crowd like royalty. I could feel the eyes on my back, jealousy, shock, awe. We didn't stop for photos. We didn't stop for interviews. We walked straight out the front doors to the waiting car. Collins opened the door, and we slid into the sanctuary of the Maybach. As soon as the door closed and the tinted glass sealed us off from the world, the adrenaline crashed. My knees gave out. I slumped against the leather seat, my hands trembling uncontrollably. The air left my lungs in a rush. I felt like I was going to be sick. Breathe, Hyuk-bin commanded. He didn't move to the other side of the seat. He stayed close. He took my shaking hands in his. His hands were large, warm, and steady. I can't believe I said that, I gasped, staring at our joined hands. I just threatened the Wei Consortium. I just humiliated Jae-hwan in front of the entire investment board. You were magnificent, Hyuk-bin said softly. He reached into the console and pulled out a bottle of water, unscrewing the cap and handing it to me. Drink. The crash is normal. You just served 5 years of your life in 5 minutes. I took a sip, the cold water grounding me. Did you see his face? He looked like he owned me. Like he couldn't believe I had the audacity to exist without him. Men like Hahm believe women are furniture, Hyuk-bin said, his jaw tightening. He is angry because someone stole his favorite chair, not because he lost a partner. But you. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my cheek, his fingers lingering near my jawline. You are not furniture, Rebecca. You are a forest fire. I looked at him. In the dim light of the car, the sharp angles of his face were softened by shadows. He looked tired, the stress of the confrontation showing in the lines around his eyes. Thank you, I whispered, for backing me up. It's in the contract, he said, but his thumb swept across my cheekbone, betraying the clinical words. Protection is part of the package. We drove in silence for the rest of the way, but it wasn't the heavy, awkward silence of strangers. It was a charged silence. My leg was pressed against his. I could feel the heat radiating from him. I was hyper-aware of his scent, sandalwood and steel. When we arrived at the penthouse, Collins took the car away, leaving us alone in the private elevator. The ride up was excruciating. The mirrored walls reflected us, him in his tuxedo, me in the emerald dress. We looked like a power couple. We looked like we belonged together. The elevator dinged, opening directly into the foyer. I stepped out, kicking off my heels immediately. The cool marble felt good against my aching feet. I need to get out of this dress, I muttered, reaching for the zipper at the back. It was a hidden clasp, delicate and fiddly. My fingers, still trembling slightly from the adrenaline crash, couldn't find the purchase. Allow me. Hyuk-bin's voice came from right behind me. I froze. He stepped closer. I could feel his chest inches from my back. I could feel his breath on the sensitive skin of my neck. Relax, he murmured. His fingers brushed my spine, sending a shiver straight down to my toes. He found the zipper tab. He didn't rush. He pulled it down slowly, the sound loud in the quiet apartment. As the velvet parted, the cool air hit my skin, followed by the warmth of his knuckles grazing my back. He stopped the zipper at the small of my back. He didn't step away. For a heartbeat, I thought he might kiss me. I thought he might place his hands on my waist and pull me back against him. And God help me, I wanted him to. The adrenaline had twisted into something else, a need for connection, for affirmation that I was alive. Go sleep, Rebecca, he said, his voice rougher than usual. He stepped back, putting distance between us. Collins has scheduled your first session with the therapist at the Aurora Foundation for tomorrow at noon. And your new design team is meeting you at the studio at 2 p.m. I turned around, clutching the front of the dress to keep it up. He was standing there, hands in his pockets, looking at me with an unreadable expression. The mask was back in place. The Glacier. Thank you, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Good night. He turned and walked toward the kitchen, loosening his tie as he went. I fled to my room. My bedroom in the penthouse was a sanctuary of neutrals and soft textures, very different from the stark modernity of the rest of the apartment. I locked the door, stripped off the dress, and stood under the hottest shower I could stand. I scrubbed the Gala off my skin. I scrubbed off Jae-hwan's look of ownership. I scrubbed off Lena's pity. When I finally climbed into the massive bed, I thought I would be awake for hours. But exhaustion pulled me under instantly. I woke up screaming. It was an old nightmare, the one where I was trapped in a glass building that was collapsing, and Jae-hwan was outside, holding the key, watching me fall. Rebecca. The door to my room burst open. I sat up, gasping for air, sweat clinging to my skin. The room was dark, but the hallway light spilled in, silhouetting a figure. Hyuk-bin was there in seconds. He wasn't wearing his suit. He was in gray sweatpants and a black t-shirt, looking jarringly domestic and terrified. I heard screaming, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed without hesitation. Are you hurt? Is someone here? No, I choked out, pulling the duvet up to my chin. No, just a nightmare. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you. He didn't leave. He reached out and turned on the bedside lamp, casting a warm, golden glow over the room. He looked at my face, likely seeing the terror still lingering in my eyes. The building, he asked quietly. I nodded. I had mentioned my recurring stress dream during our negotiation breakfast, but I hadn't expected him to remember. The walls were falling. Jae-hwan was watching. He is not watching anymore, Hyuk-bin said firmly. And the walls are not falling. Look around. This structure is steel reinforced. I checked the blueprints myself. It was such a specific, engineer-like thing to say that I let out a wet, shaky laugh. You checked the blueprints? I check everything, he said. You are safe here. He hesitated, then reached out and took my hand, the one resting on top of the duvet. He rubbed his thumb over the black diamond ring I was still wearing. Try to sleep, he said. I will stay until you do. You don't have to. I know. But I am not Jae-hwan. I do not leave when things get difficult. He moved to the armchair in the corner of the room, pulling it closer to the bed. He sat down, crossing his long legs, and simply watched over me. I watched him for a while, the steady rise and fall of his chest, the shadow of that mountain tattoo peeking out from his short sleeve. It was grounding. I fell asleep to the sound of his breathing. The next morning, the world had changed. I walked into the kitchen to find Collins arranging newspapers on the island. Hyuk-bin was already gone, apparently. CEOs didn't sleep in, even after late-night nightmare vigils. Good morning, Mrs. Chun, Collins said. Headlines are favorable. He slid a paper toward me. The Empress Strikes Back. Rebecca Brown weds tycoon Chun Hyuk-bin. Hahm Global stock dips 4% amidst rumors of rivalry. There was a photo of us on the red carpet. Hyuk-bin whispered in my ear. I looked like I held the secrets of the universe. Mr. Chun has left for the office, Collins said, handing me a tablet. He asked me to give you this. It is the access code to the blind trust accounts for your studio. And a gift. He pointed to a small box on the counter. I opened it. Inside was a brand new phone. New number, Collins explained. Encrypted. Mr. Hahm has been trying to call your old number since 6 a.m. Mr. Chun thought you might prefer silence. I picked up the phone. It was already set up. There was only one contact saved in the favorites. Husband. I pressed the button. You're awake, Hyuk-bin's voice came through, deep and clear. He sounded like he was in a meeting, but he had answered on the first ring. I am, I said, a smile tugging at my lips. Thank you for the phone. And for last night. Don't thank me, he said abruptly. Just get ready. You have a busy day. And Rebecca. Yes. Wear the ring. Jae-hwan sent flowers to your old apartment this morning. He is not giving up. We need to remind him that the door is closed. He sent flowers? I felt a spike of anger. White lilies. Funeral, Hyuk-bin noted with distaste. I had them incinerated. Have a good day, wife. He hung up. I stared at the phone. He had intercepted flowers and burned them? I looked at the newspaper again. The headline called me an empress. But standing in this high-tech kitchen, wearing Hyuk-bin's ring, I didn't feel like an empress yet. I felt like a woman who had just realized that her fake marriage was starting to feel dangerously, terrifyingly real. And I had a feeling that Jae-hwan wasn't just going to send flowers. He was going to come for me. The therapist at the Aurora Wellness Foundation asked me one question that stuck with me for the rest of the day. Are you angry that he sold you, or are you angry that you let him set the price? It was a question that rattled around in my head as the town car dropped me off in the arts district. This wasn't the glass and steel prison of the financial district. This was brick, ivy, and creativity. It was where I belonged. We are here, Mrs. Chun, the driver said. I looked up at the building. It was a renovated warehouse, the windows large and industrial. My name wasn't on the door yet, but the lease was signed. Rebecca Brown Studio. Fully funded, independent, and untouchable. I walked inside, the smell of fresh paint and sawdust hitting me. And standing in the middle of the empty, sun-drenched space was the one person I needed to see more than anyone. So, a voice drawled from behind a stack of moving boxes. I leave town for a 3-day wellness retreat, and I come back to find my best friend is married to the Korean equivalent of Bruce Wayne with a darker backstory. I dropped my bag. Brianna. Brianna Cole stepped out, looking fierce in a bright yellow jumpsuit and box braids. She didn't smile immediately. She crossed her arms, her eyes scanning me for damage. Tell me it's real, she said. Tell me you didn't just marry the Glacier because you had a mental break. It's complicated, I admitted. Complicated is forgetting to text back. Married to Chun Hyuk-bin is a whole different category, Becca. She sighed, then walked over and pulled me into a bone-crushing hug. But I saw the photos. You looked like a goddess who just ate her enemies for breakfast. I'm proud of you. I squeezed her back, feeling the first real smile of the day form on my face. I need your help, Bree. I have the space, the funding, and the contracts Hyuk-bin sent over. But I need a team. I need systems. Say less, Brianna said, pulling back and grabbing her tablet. I've already been looking into these new AI project management tools for architects. We can automate the boring stuff, billing, scheduling, permit applications. We'll run this place lean and mean. Hahm Global won't know what hit them. We spent the next 4 hours working. It felt good. It felt normal. For a few hours, I wasn't Mrs. Chun or the jilted ex-fiancé. I was just an architect building her dream. But reality has a way of intruding. At 5 p.m., Brianna left to grab us takeout. I stayed behind to review some schematics for the lobby renovation Hyuk-bin had commissioned. The front door chimed. That was fast. Did you forget that? I looked up, expecting Brianna. It wasn't Brianna. Jae-hwan stood in the doorway of my studio. He looked disheveled, far from the polished executive I had left at the gala. His tie was loose, his eyes bloodshot. How did you find me? I asked, my voice cold. I didn't move from behind my desk. It felt like a barricade. I know you, Rebecca, he said, stepping inside. He looked around the empty space with a sneer. This? This is what you left me for? A warehouse. It's mine, I said. And you didn't have to find me. You could have just called. Oh wait, I blocked you. Rebecca, stop this, he pleaded, walking closer. The stunt at the gala, okay, you made your point. You're angry. I get it. But married? To him? You have no idea what you've walked into. I walked into a partnership, I said, standing up. Something you never offered me. You offered me a severance package. I was trying to save the company. Jae-hwan slammed his hand on my desk. The sound echoed in the empty room. My father, the debt. We were going to lose everything. The way deal was the only way. So you sold me. I sacrificed us, he shouted. For the greater good. And now Hyuk-bin is tearing us apart. Do you know what he did this morning? He bought the debt notes Hahm Global owes to the banks. He owns our debt, Rebecca. He can foreclose on our headquarters tomorrow if he wants to. I blinked. Hyuk-bin hadn't mentioned that. He had bought their debt? It was a nuclear move. He's using you, Jae-hwan said, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. He reached across the desk, grabbing my hand. He doesn't love you. He hates my father. You are just a weapon to him. Once he's destroyed us, he'll discard you just like you think I did. Please. Annul the marriage. Come back. We can fix this. His hand was clammy. I looked at it, the hand I used to hold, the hand I thought would put a ring on my finger. Now, it just felt like a trap. Let go of me, I said calmly. Bex, please. I said, let go. I yanked my hand back. You're right, Jae-hwan. Hyuk-bin is using me. And I am using him. We are using each other to burn your legacy to the ground. And the difference between him and you? He told me the truth to my face. You stabbed me in the back and called it a business decision. He's a monster. Jae-hwan yelled. He has blood on his hands. Do you know about the port deal? Do you know about the people who disappear when they cross him? I know he's my husband, I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. And I know he's not the one trespassing. I'm not leaving until you listen to reason. He moved around the desk, invading my space. The air shifted. The temperature dropped. I believe the lady asked you to leave. The voice came from the shadows near the entrance. We both spun around. Hyuk-bin was leaning against the doorframe. He looked relaxed, almost bored, but his eyes were fixed on Jae-hwan with a predatory intensity. Collins stood behind him, looking much less relaxed. Hyuk-bin, Jae-hwan breathed, taking a step back. Hyuk-bin acknowledged. He walked into the room, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. You have a bad habit of being where you are not wanted. First my gala, now my wife's studio. I was just talking to her, Jae-hwan said, trying to regain his composure. She's confused. You've brainwashed her. She looks very clear-headed to me, Hyuk-bin said. He stopped beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. It wasn't a claim of ownership this time, it was an anchor. You mentioned blood on my hands, Hahm. Do you want to see how much of it is yours? It was a threat, plain and simple. Jae-hwan turned pale. He looked at me, waiting for me to defend him. To be the soft, forgiving Rebecca he knew. I stared back, stone-faced. Get out, Jae-hwan, I said. He looked broken. He turned and walked out, brushing past Collins. As soon as he was gone, Hyuk-bin turned to me. His calm facade cracked. He grabbed my hands, inspecting them. Did he hurt you? He demanded. His voice was rough. Collins said he was shouting. I'm fine, I said, though my heart was pounding. He said you bought their debt. I did. You didn't tell me. I didn't want to bore you with the financial details of their execution, Hyuk-bin said darkly. He let go of my hands and paced away, running a hand through his hair. He looked agitated. He touched you. I saw him grab your hand. It was nothing, Hyuk-bin. It is not nothing. He spun around, his eyes blazing. You are wearing my ring. You carry my name. If he thinks he can walk in here and touch you. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. The mountain tattoo on his arm flexed with the tension of his muscles. I should have broken his fingers. I stared at him. This wasn't just about business. This wasn't just about a contract. This was jealous. Possessive. Why do you care? I asked quietly. It's a fake marriage, remember? Narrative weapon. Hyuk-bin looked at me. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. You are my partner, he said finally, his voice low. Nobody touches what is mine. Yours. I challenged myself. He stepped closer, invading my personal space just as Jae-hwan had, but this felt entirely different. This didn't feel like a trap, it felt like gravity. Check the contract, Rebecca, he whispered, looking down at me. Exclusivity clause. My breath hitched. Come, he said, stepping back and buttoning his jacket. We have dinner reservations. And I want to hear about your lobby designs. I need something beautiful to look at after looking at Ham's face. We left the studio. But as we walked to the car, I couldn't stop thinking about the look in his eyes. Nobody touches what is mine. I was starting to wonder if I wanted to belong to him. If you're loving this power couple energy, make sure you're subscribed. In the next part, the way family strikes back, and I have to decide if I'm ready to get my hands dirty to protect my new husband. Leave a comment if you think Hyuk-bin went too far buying the debt, or not far enough. The dinner was in a private room in a Michelin-starred restaurant overlooking the Han River. It was quiet, intimate. The debt purchase, I brought up again over the appetizer. What does it mean for them? It means I control their cash flow, Hyuk-bin explained, pouring me a glass of vintage red wine. If they miss a single payment, which they will, because the way capital hasn't cleared yet, I can force them into administration. I can strip the assets. The brand name. Everything. And the father? Destitute. Humiliated. Hyuk-bin took a sip of his wine. It is what he deserves. And what about Lena? I asked. Madame Lin won't let her niece marry into a bankrupt family. Precisely, Hyuk-bin smiled, a shark-like expression. The wedding will be cancelled within the month. Jae-hwan will lose the money and the girl. He will have nothing. It was ruthless. It was perfect. You really hate them, I observed. I hate betrayal, Hyuk-bin corrected. He looked at me, his gaze softening. I value loyalty above all else. That is why I chose you. You stayed with him for 5 years through his failures. You are loyal to a fault. I intend to be the kind of man who deserves that loyalty. I felt a blush rising on my cheeks. I'm not just loyal, Hyuk-bin. I'm ambitious. I want my studio to be the best. And it will be. I saw your sketches for the lobby. The use of light. It is extraordinary. You have a gift for bringing warmth into cold spaces. Maybe I can bring some warmth to you, I teased, bold from the wine. Hyuk-bin froze. He looked at me, his eyes dark and hungry. "Be careful, wife," he murmured. "You might find that once you melt the ice, you drown in the water." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. And mine buzzed at the same time. He picked him up. His expression hardened instantly. "Collins," he answered. "Talk." I looked at my phone. It was a text from Brianna. "Turn on the news. Now." "Put the TV on," Hyuk-bin ordered the waiter. The screen on the wall flickered to life. A news anchor was speaking urgently. "Breaking news. Federal investigation launched into Chun International Group regarding allegations of Port Authority bribery and money laundering. Anonymous whistleblower claims to have digital evidence." "The Wei family," I whispered. "They didn't wait," Hyuk-bin said, standing up. He didn't look scared. He looked ready for war. "They are playing dirty." He looked at me. "The dinner is over. We need to go." "Is it true?" I asked, standing up as well. "The allegations?" Hyuk-bin looked me in the eye. "Parts of it," he admitted. "From before my time. From my father's time." "And the whistleblower?" "There is no whistleblower," Hyuk-bin said, grabbing his coat. "They are fabricating evidence. They are trying to separate us. To scare you away." He held out his hand. "They think you will run when the heat gets turned up. Will you run, Rebecca?" I looked at the news screen. I looked at the man who had bought my ex's debt just to watch him squirm. The man who had guarded my sleep. "I don't run," I said, taking his hand. "I fight." "Good," Hyuk-bin said, pulling me toward the door. "Because tonight, we are going to war." The ride back to the penthouse was a blur of phone calls. Hyuk-bin spoke in rapid-fire Korean, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the tone: containment, defense, war. When we arrived, the sanctuary of our home had been breached. Not by police, not yet, but by lawyers. A dozen men and women in suits were already in the living room, setting up servers and spreading files across the coffee table. "They are freezing the assets," Collins said, meeting us at the door. He looked grim. "The allegation is that Chun International used the construction materials import division to launder money for the triads. They have digital receipts." "Fabricated," Hyuk-bin spat, throwing his coat onto a chair. "Show me." I stood by the window, watching the city below. The lights of Seoul looked different tonight, sharper, colder. I felt useless. I was an architect, not a criminal defense attorney. "Rebecca," Hyuk-bin said. He hadn't looked at me since we entered. "Go to your room. Pack a bag. Collins has a jet waiting at Incheon. You are going to our estate in Jeju until this blows over." I turned slowly. "Excuse me. The press will be here in an hour. The prosecutors in 2. I do not want you seeing that." He was looking at a tablet, refusing to meet my eyes. "This is going to get ugly. I need to know you are safe." "You need me out of the way," I corrected. "I need you safe," he roared, finally looking up. The raw fear in his eyes stopped me cold. "If they can't get to me, they will come for you. They will try to leverage you to get me to sign a confession. I will not let you be collateral damage again." It was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to me, and also the most insulting. I walked over to the table, ignoring the lawyers who stared at me. I looked at the evidence, displayed on the main screen. It was a series of shipping manifests and invoices from a project 3 years ago. Project code H77 blue. My heart stopped. "Zoom in," I said, pointing at the screen. "Mrs. Chun, please, we are working," a lawyer started. I said zoom in. I snapped. Hyuk-bin signaled the lawyer to obey. The image expanded. "That project code," I said, my voice trembling with rage. H77 blue. "That's not a Chun International code. Your codes are numeric. H77. That's Hahm Global syntax. H for Hahm, 77 for the year the company was founded." I looked at Hyuk-bin. "This isn't just fabricated evidence. It's recycled evidence. These are materials Hahm Global imported for the Atrium project. I remember because I signed off on the marble specs. They changed the headers and planted them on your server." The room went deadly silent. "You are certain?" Hyuk-bin asked, his intensity shifting from protective to predatory. I designed the filing system they use, I said. If I can get into their archives, the physical archives, not the digital ones they can scrub, I can find the original invoices. I can prove they bought the materials, not you. The archives are in the Hahm headquarters, Collins pointed out. We cannot get in. We are enemies of the state right now. You can't, I said, reaching for my purse. But I still have my keycard. They deactivated my digital access, but the service elevator in the basement? It runs on a legacy system. They never upgraded it because Mr. Hahm was too cheap. No, Hyuk-bin said immediately. Absolutely not. You are not walking into the lion's den. I'm not walking in, I said, grabbing a black baseball cap from the coat rack. I'm breaking in. And you're going to help me. Rebecca. You wanted a partner, Hyuk-bin, I cut him off, stepping into his space. I grabbed the lapels of his shirt, pulling him down until our foreheads touched. You bought my debt. You gave me a ring. You defended my honor. Now let me save your empire. We do this together, or I leave. And if I leave, I'm not coming back. He stared at me, his breathing ragged. He searched my eyes for fear and found only adrenaline. You are insane, he whispered. I married a lunatic. You married a genius, I corrected. Now tell Collins to get the car. The plan was simple and stupid. Hyuk-bin would create a diversion. He would go to the front gates of Hahm Global with his legal team, demanding a meeting with Jae-hwan. The media would swarm. Security would be focused on the front. I would go to the loading dock in the back alley. It was 2 a.m. when the Maybach dropped me off a block away. I was wearing black jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. I felt like a spy in a bad movie, except the stakes were my husband's life. Earpiece check. Hyuk-bin's voice came through the tiny bud in my ear. He was in the car out front. I can hear you. If you see anyone, you abort. Do you understand? You run. Loud and clear, husband, I whispered. I slipped into the alley. The smell of garbage and rain was thick. I found the service door. I held my breath and swiped the old plastic card I had kept on my keychain for 5 years. Beep. Green light. I'm in, I breathed. I am approaching the front gate now, Hyuk-bin said. Chaos commencing in 3, 2, 1. Through the earpiece, I heard the distant roar of shouting and camera flashes. Hyuk-bin was putting on a show. I took the service elevator to the sub-basement. The archives. It was a dusty, forgotten room filled with boxes that hadn't been digitized yet. This was where the bodies were buried, metaphorically. I used my phone's flashlight, scanning the aisle markers. 2021, 2022. Atrium Project. I found the section, I whispered. I'm looking for the Q3 shipping manifests. Hurry, Hyuk-bin's voice was tight. Jae-hwan is coming out to meet me. He looks smug. I want to wipe that look off his face. My hands flew through the files. Dust coated my fingers. Paper cuts stung my skin. Where is it? Where is it? I found a folder labeled Import Duties, marble/steel. I opened it. There it was. The original invoice. The same serial numbers, the same quantities, but the header was Hahm Global and the signature at the bottom. Got it, I gasped, snapping a photo and then shoving the physical document into my hoodie pocket. It's signed by Jae-hwan. He authorized the illegal import, not you. He framed you to cover his own tracks from 3 years ago. Get out, Hyuk-bin ordered. Now. I turned to leave. The lights in the archive room flickered on. I froze. Standing at the end of the aisle, holding a security flashlight, was not a guard. It was Lena Wei. She was wearing a trench coat over pajamas, looking like she had been sleeping in the building. She held a small pistol in her hand. It shook slightly. I knew it, she whispered. I knew you'd come back. You always were obsessed with the details. Lena, I said, raising my hands slowly. Put the gun down. You don't want to do this. Hyuk-bin is finished, she said, her eyes manic. My aunt said he's finished. If we get rid of him, Hahm Global survives. I became the CEO's wife. I won. You're protecting a sinking ship, I said, inching forward. I have the proof, Lena. Jae-hwan signed the illegal orders. If you shoot me, the police will find the papers on my body. Your fiancé goes to prison regardless. Do you want to go with him? Rebecca? Hyuk-bin's voice in my ear was panicked. Rebecca, what is happening? Lena, I said, ignoring Hyuk-bin. Look at me. Jae-hwan sold me for money. Do you really think he won't sell you to the prosecutors to save himself? He's probably cutting a deal right now while you're down here holding a gun. Lena hesitated. The gun lowered an inch. He loves me. He loves leverage, I corrected. You're just the new me with a bigger bank account. But once the money is gone, you're just a liability. I took a gamble. I stepped closer, within arm's reach. Give me the gun, Lena. Walk away. You can still be the victim who was tricked by the Hahm family. Or you can be the accomplice. She looked at the gun, then at me. A tear slid down her perfect cheek. He's a coward, she whispered. I know, I said. She dropped the gun. It clattered on the concrete. Go, she choked out. The back exit. Security is coming down the main lift. I didn't wait. I grabbed the gun, just in case, and sprinted for the service elevator. I'm coming out, I yelled into the mic. I have the papers. And I have a hell of a story for the police. I burst out of the alley door just as the Maybach screeched around the corner, ignoring traffic laws and physics. The door flew open before it even stopped. I dove inside. Hyuk-bin grabbed me, pulling me into his chest so hard it knocked the wind out of me. He buried his face in my hair, his whole body shaking. He growled against my neck. You are never, ever doing that again. Did you get the distraction? I panted, clutching the file in my pocket. I punched Jae-hwan on live television, Hyuk-bin said, pulling back to look at me. His eyes were wild. It was very distracting. I started to laugh. It was a hysterical, terrifying sound. I have the invoice. We have them, Hyuk-bin. We have them. He looked at the papers I pulled out, then at my dust-covered face. He didn't look at the evidence. He looked at me like I was the only thing in the world. Drive, he ordered Collins. Take us to the prosecutor's office. We are ending this tonight. He kissed me then. Not a gentle kiss. Not a show for the cameras. It was a desperate, claiming thing, tasting of fear and victory. I kissed him back, my hands tangling in his hair, feeling the mountain tattoo flex under my fingertips as he held me. The war wasn't over. But the battle was won. And for the first time, I knew exactly whose side I was on. The dawn broke over Seoul in shades of bruised purple and gray, matching the mood inside the Hahm Global boardroom. But this time, I wasn't the one being discarded. Hyuk-bin and I stood by the glass wall of the prosecutor's observation deck. Below us, in the main lobby of the building I had once poured my soul into designing, the end had arrived. The raid was swift. The evidence I had pulled from the archives, combined with the digital trail Hyuk-bin's team had uncovered using the original invoices, was irrefutable. It wasn't just embezzlement, it was fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. Here they come, Hyuk-bin said quietly. He didn't gloat. He stood with his hands in his pockets, his posture relaxed but alert. The mountain ridge tattoo on his arm was hidden beneath his suit, but I could feel the immovable strength of him beside me. The elevator doors opened below. Officers swarmed out, flanking two men. Mr. Hahm Sung-jin looked small. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the shuffling gait of an old man who had lost his kingdom. And Jae-hwan. He was still wearing the tuxedo from the night before, rumpled and stained. Handcuffs glinted on his wrists. He looked around wildly, searching the faces of his terrified employees, until he looked up. Through the glass, our eyes met. He stopped. The officer behind him shoved him forward, but he resisted for a second, mouthing a word. Rebecca. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel joy. I felt a profound, quiet release. The heavy weight I had been carrying for 5 years, the need to be good enough, the need to save him, the need to prove my worth, evaporated. Do you want to go down there? Hyuk-bin asked. Do you want to say anything to him? I watched Jae-hwan being shoved into a police cruiser, the flashing lights painting his face in red and blue. No, I said, turning away from the window. I already said goodbye. He just wasn't listening. The Wei family had quietly withdrawn from the country hours before the warrants were issued. Lena had cooperated in exchange for immunity, fleeing back to her aunt's estate in Hong Kong. She was a survivor, like me, but she chose flight while I chose to fight. It is over, Hyuk-bin said. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw hesitation in his dark eyes. The contract, the primary objective, has been achieved. Hahm Global will be liquidated. Your reputation is restored. You are free. Free, I repeated. The word hung in the air between us, heavy and ambiguous. 3 weeks later, the dust had settled. Hahm Global was no more. Its assets were being auctioned off, and the crown jewel, the headquarters, had been purchased by a subsidiary of Chun International. I was in the lobby of the Chun building. My renovation was complete. The sterile white marble was gone. In its place, I had installed warm timber paneling and a massive, living green wall that breathed life into the space. The lighting was soft, golden, and welcoming. It no longer looked like a fortress, it looked like a home. It is magnificent, a voice said. I turned. Hyuk-bin was standing there. He had been avoiding me for the last week, burying himself in meetings. He looked tired, the shadows under his eyes pronounced. It needed warmth, I said. It was too cold before. I was too cold before, he murmured. He walked over to me, stopping a respectable distance away. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. He held it out to me. What is this? I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I knew. Annulment papers, he said. His voice was flat, controlled. And the deed to your studio, fully paid off. Plus the 10% commission from the Hahm liquidation. It is all there. My heart hammered against my ribs. You're firing me? I am releasing you, Hyuk-bin corrected. He looked at the floor, then forced himself to meet my gaze. The danger has passed. You don't need my protection anymore. You are Rebecca Brown, the most sought-after architect in the city. You don't need to be tethered to a man with a dark past and a target on his back. Is that what you think this is? I asked, stepping closer. A tether. You married me for revenge, he said. You got it. Why would you stay? Because you listened to me, I said, taking another step. Because you defend me when I'm not in the room. Because when I have a nightmare, you sit in a chair and watch me breathe until morning. Hyuk-bin flinched. That is duty. That is love, Hyuk-bin, I whispered. He went still. Do not say that unless you mean it. I am not a man who can handle half measures, Rebecca. If you say it, I will never let you go. I will burn the world down before I let you walk away again. I took the envelope from his hand. Slowly, deliberately, I tore it in half. Then in quarters. I let the pieces flutter to the floor of the beautiful lobby we had built. I don't want an annulment, I said. I want a renegotiation. Renegotiation? He asked, his voice rough with hope. New terms, I said, placing my hands on his chest, right over his heart. I could feel it pounding, betraying his calm facade. No more separate bedrooms. No more secrets. And you have to let me design our summer house. Hyuk-bin let out a breath that sounded like a broken dam. He wrapped his arms around me, crushing me to him, burying his face in the crook of my neck. Done, he groaned. Done. You can design the whole damn city. He pulled back, framing my face with his large hands. His thumbs traced my cheekbones, his eyes searching mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. I have loved you since the moment you collided with me on that sidewalk, he confessed. You looked like a storm that was about to break, and I knew I wanted to be the one to catch the rain. I love you, I said, and saying it felt like setting the final cornerstone of a skyscraper. I love you, Hyuk-bin. He kissed me then. It wasn't the desperate kiss of the getaway car or the performative kiss of the gala. It was slow, deep, and full of promises. It tasted of forever. As we broke apart, I traced the line of his sleeve. Show me. He knew what I meant. He unbuttoned his cuff and rolled up his sleeve, revealing the tattoo. The dark, ink-black mountain ridge. My father used to say that a man must be like a mountain, Hyuk-bin said quietly. Unmovable. Cold. Alone. I ran my fingers over the ink. He was wrong. Mountains aren't alone. They support everything around them. They reach for the sky. I kissed the ink on his forearm. You are my mountain, Hyuk-bin. But you don't have to be cold anymore. He smiled, and this time, it reached his eyes, crinkling the corners, transforming his face into something breathtakingly open. Come, he said, lacing his fingers through mine. The black diamond on my finger caught the light, no longer armor, but a promise. We have a meeting. A meeting, I groaned. Now, with the board, he said, pulling me toward the elevators. I need to introduce them to the real owner of Chun International. I thought you owned it? I do, he said, pressing the button for the penthouse. But you own me. So, by extension. We laughed as the elevator doors closed, sealing us into our future. Jae-hwan had traded me for a check and lost everything. I had traded my safety for a chance, and I had won the world. Revenge was sweet, but this victory was something much better. This was built to last. And that is the story of how I went from a discarded fiancé to the wife of the most dangerous man in Seoul. If you enjoyed watching Rebecca and Hyuk-bin burn down the old world to build a new one, smash that like button. Comment Mountain Energy below if you want a man who protects you like Hyuk-bin protects Rebecca. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of betrayal, revenge, and romance that hits different. We release new stories every week, and trust me, the next one is going to be even wilder. Thanks for watching, and remember, know your worth, then add tax.